Richard would enact the Great Destruction, which destroyed every Richterist nation. This would leave the Richterists in darkness for days, resulting in several different leaders popping up and claiming to be a true successor. Some Richterians, such as RichardRichterian, advocated for the total war against Richard for his treason, while others, such as Spartan Richterian and Spooky Richterian, advocated for the peaceful unification. The peaceful unification worked, but at the cost of various prominent Richterists being furious with this move, leading to several Richterist splinter states rising up, kicking off the beginning of the Octavian Civil War. Wilhelm Richterian abdicated the throne of Prussia, resulting in Eric Eternal becoming emperor. Lakeland's L's LVF would declare independence, claiming southern France, and glorious brand 2308's Octavian remnants would claim Spain and Portugal. Eric would abdicate weeks into taking power, and an anti-Richterist emperor would purge Prussia and all Richterists, resulting in a mass emigration to LVS French state. And glorious brand Octavia, Aussie Richterian with his following, would usurp Octavia from Brand and reunite Richterian dynasty under Ethan Richterian as the Grand Chairman. Octavian Richterian, who returned from retirement, become Ethan's deputy chairman, but coup Ethan a week later, citing inactivity as a reason. Octavian would then proclaim himself Emperor of Richterism. Meanwhile in Germany, RichardRichterian would work with Walter Manzotti to form the new Richterist Empire, known as Empire Germania, the Richterian Imperium being absorbed into it as a consequence. Octavian would join forces with Walter, becoming Archduke, with Trajan being Emperor. Walter Manzotti would reign as president. Octavian, however, used his powers as Emperor of Richterism to demand Trajan to step down as Emperor of Germania. However, Trajan refused, and as a result, a civil war broke out in Germania. Octavian had the upper hand, as Trajan was a controversial figure amongst the Richterians, and Trajan warned that Octavian was not truly loyal to Aleczander. This warning would be ignored, and Octavian would depart from Germania, citing bias on Walter's end. Octavia would reform itself under a lesser-known leader known as Richard Schwartz, reclaiming Iberia. Octavian would flee to Korea, which had suffered low damage during the Great Destruction, and use it to build up his forces. He would also ally with Cadens, obtaining control of the Soviet Union in eastern Russia. Trajan, meanwhile, worked closely with Walter, whilst Ozzy defected and formed Greater Richteria, allying with Trajan. Greater Richteria fell, as nearby empires such as Alemannia attacked Richteria in its weakened state, forcing Ozzy to join forces with Trajan. Walter, however, was unmotivated to launch Germania into an active state mobilized against Alemannia, and as a result, Germania never took off. When Germania fell apart to Alemannia, the Richterists thought all would be lost until Patrick J. Smith returned to Europe, promising a future in America. Patrick would reform the Richterian dynasty under the Smith administration, taking up the mantle of leadership. He would reclaim America with his Patriotist Front and rally his forces against Richard Schwartz. In January 2023, Patrick would declare war on Octavia, seeking to restore its former state. The problem with this move is that the Richterians had not been involved in active combat since December 2020, resulting in inexperienced generals leading the attack. The battle was nearly lost as the incompetence of Spartan Richterian going MIA mid-battle, but thanks to Domitian B. Smith's infiltration of Octavia, Octavia's army would be destabilized, allowing for America's push in and win the battle for true Richterism. Greater America would once again fall to dissent as the 8th Routh Army rebels infiltrated and attempted a total takeover of America. Chicago was put down to martial law as a result, and Patrick resumed operations in Europe following this. With Octavian becoming more and more power-hungry, he would disavow Aleczander and propose his own doctrines to replace his. These moves were unpopular and would result in mass defections to Patrick. Patrick would form the Zaenderism movement as an opposition force towards Octavian's Illumist ideology. Proclaiming total loyalty to Aleczander was the way, replacing Richterism as a whole. In this war of morale, Patrick would win, and Octavian became paranoid and shut down his version of Richterians due to his distrust of his members. By July of 2023, the Zaenderism movement would then make moves to reclaim Prussia from the anti-Richterists and successfully got a veteran of Octavia into power known as Saft in Prussia. Prussia, however, would betray the Zaenderists at the advice of his inner circle and claim Prussia could exceed even the likes of Alecxander's Octavia. This move was treason and led to war between Patrick and Saft. Patrick would form the People's State of Octavia in opposition of this, but would face betrayal by Ozzy, who, using his connections to the Cadans, would usurp Curia and use his manpower to funnel a new Octavian state, dubbed the I Order State, supported by veterans of the I. LVF would also join the fight on the side of Patrick. All four sides would arrive in Paris for the final battle for who would take Octavia, an all or nothing war.